Well, hello. This is a presentation of what I've been working on for my Master's of Philosophy and Human Ecology. My study focuses on the North Atlantic right whale and their acoustic behavior in a potentially critical habitat within the Gulf of Maine known as outer fall. North Atlantic right whales are one of the most endangered large whale species, with their current population estimated to be about 473 individuals. Aptly named the urban whale, their entire known habitat range exists between the Bay of Fundy, where they feed in summer months, to the coasts of Georgia and Florida, which is their winter calving and nursing grounds. Up until very recently, the winter habitat for the non-calving portion of the population has been unknown. Due to their habitat existing adjacent to one of the busiest coastlines in the world, these animals have had a high mortality rate due to the negative anthropogenic interactions, such as ship strike or fishing gear entanglement. This year alone, there have been 5 confirmed mortalities, 2 from entanglement, 1 from ship strike, which was a breeding female, and 2 from unknown causes. There have also been 4 new entanglements detected on living whales. A lot of the entanglements are attributed to lobster gear in the Gulf of Maine. This is a ship strike animal from this year that is still alive but has life-threatening injuries. This whale is about 3 years old. You can see the head is up here, and these are actually all the propeller scars running down along its back. However, the Gulf of Maine has been used by fishermen and other mariners for generations. These people feel that they have as much right to work on these waters as the whales have to swim in them. Managing human behavior in order to protect these whales has caused a lot of political unrest. One of the priorities of NOAA's North Atlantic right whale recovery plan is to characterize and monitor important habitats for this species, as well as the status, trends, and distribution of the species itself. This is rather difficult, since we only see a tiny fraction of whales' overall behavior from what little time they spend at the surface. Also, it would be nearly impossible to monitor a whale over long periods of time from a boat, and tagging only lasts a few hours to a few months. One way around this problem of long-term monitoring of habitat and behavior is through passive acoustic monitoring, or listening for the whales, a relatively new sensing technique used in marine mammal science. Using autonomous recording units that can be sent to the seafloor, we can record whale vocalizations over large spatial and temporal scales, at night, and also in inclement weather. These units produce large, rich data sets that it can be analyzed to help answer questions, including behavioral differences between seasons. It is for this reason that I chose to use passive acoustic monitoring to study a particular area of the Gulf of Maine known as outer fall. Recent aerial surveys have shown high densities of these animals in winter. As I stated before, beyond calving and nursing grounds, the winter habitat for these animals was previously unknown. So this is a map of the Gulf of Maine, and you can see Mount Desert Island up here. And this was the location of my recording unit, and this is the 10 nautical mile buffer, which we estimated to be the recording range of the buoy. And then these were actually all the right whales that were cited by aerial surveys within the first half of my study. The first call type I looked for was the up call, which is a call thought to be used as a contact call between individuals. This is a spectrogram that's showing time on the x-axis, frequency in kilohertz on the y-axis, and then amplitude is in grayscale, so this little black swoop is what I was looking for. I'll play this sound for you now. The second call type I looked for is the gunshot call, which is a call associated with mating behavior in right whales. It is thought that only male whales produce this call, and that is used to antagonize other males or broadcast to females. I'll play this one. While looking for these calls, I found a number of calls that we suspect are right whales and are most likely associated with social or mating behaviors. So this is an example. So we hypothesized that if we found a high number of these calls in winter months, that this is potentially their mating ground. Right whales have a year-long gestation and give birth within winter months down in Georgia and Florida. So if whales are mating at this time, it's potentially leading to pregnancy. I'd like to point out that I had 9 undergraduate technicians trained for this project who were enormously helpful. We subsampled every 3 days of data due to the sheer volume of our data set. Through the use of an automated call detector and also hand browsing for the calls, we found a total of 28,497 up calls and 16,790 gunshots in our 12-month data set. So this is a graph of the average call rate per month. The months with the highest average call rate were November through January, and it dropped off February through July and picked up again starting in August and was very high again in September and October. Statistical tests showed that there was a significant difference between months, and so this is showing that this is an area that is seasonally important in winter, strengthening the proposal that this may be an important mating ground. I also looked at the temporal patterns in calling. This is a graph representing the average number of upcalls produced during each hour of the day. Each axis represents an hour of the day, so it's kind of like a 24-hour clock. And you can see that there's two peaks in calling, both around 2 in the morning and then again in the evening hours here. And so it actually is showing that a lot of the activity that's going on in this habitat wouldn't be able to be seen by visual surveys because they take place at times of darkness. So how does this affect policy? First, a little background. There have been many policy measures in place to protect right whales with varying degrees of success. One ruling put in place to restrict fishing was seasonal or dynamic area management. Seasonal area management meant that there could be a permanent restriction on fishing in certain areas when whales were regularly present. Dynamic area management was when 3 or more whales were sighted within an area not protected by a seasonal area management. NOAA could restrict fishing in that area for a period of 15 days or longer. So within 2 days of this ruling being published in the Federal Register, all gear within a certain radius of the whale sightings needed to be out of the water. This system was burdensome for fishermen, and the process of implementing the dynamic area management was often not quick enough to provide adequate protection for the whales. These were recently replaced by broad-based gear modifications for all trap and pot gear set outside of an approximate 3 nautical mile zone away from the coastline. Sinking ground line would be required instead of floating line between traps, as well as weak links on buoy lines. While this does seem to reduce the risk of entanglements, many lobstermen feel that this new gear is unsafe, and many conservationists feel that any gear in the water is still a danger to the animals. And so the changes made, the line that is usually up in the water column that is potentially in the way of feeding whales with their mouths open was replaced by a sinking ground line. And also there is now a weak link on the vertical line. But many people still feel that this line in particular is dangerous to the whales. As for shipping, in 2008, NOAA implemented mandatory speed restrictions of 10 knots or less for vessels 65 feet or greater in certain times or areas known as seasonal management areas. They switched the words, along the U.S. Atlantic seaboard, corresponding to right whale currents. This rule would also provide for temporary dynamic management areas in times or areas where seasonal management measures are not in effect or where whales occur unexpectedly. In these locations, mariners would have the option to cross through the DMA at speed no greater than 10 knots or route around the area. However, these are optional and mariners are not required to comply. So Outerfall is listed as a shipping dynamic management area, but my data showing continual and high use of this area by right whales in winter suggests that it should be deemed critical habitat and changed to a seasonal management area to give it protection for longer periods of time and with stronger protection. As for fishing gear set in the area, this would be subject to the gear modifications. However, it's not 100% proven that these new gear modifications will completely prevent whale entanglements, especially the weak links on vertical lines. However, fishermen truly feel that any more restrictions on how they fish will cause extinction not of the right whale, but of the Maine lobsterman. Further studies of this area are needed to characterize its use by right whales in order to determine if mating behavior here is actually resulting in pregnancy and that this area is critical habitat before policy measures which could strongly affect Maine's economy can be put in place. And thank you.